Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and what you're about to watch today should be impossible. In today's video, I'm showcasing Boem20 as he makes it to Legend rank with a team where he used the wrong movesets on every single Pokemon. As a lead, he's using Shadow Scizor with Fury Cutter, X Scissor, and Iron Head. As the save switch, Altaria with Peck, Moonblast, and Dragon Pulse, and as the closer, Clodsire with Mudshot, Water Pulse, and Legacy Megahorn. Should this team win at all? Never in a million years, but Boom is one of the best players in the world, and he was able to make it to Legend rank anyway. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, he picks up a pretty bad lead, Shadow Scizor into Shadow Quagsire. The Fury Cutter damage is nice, as Quagsire is actually taking quite a bit, but unfortunately no Night Slash means that Scizor is getting horrendously outpaced. Scizor gonna farm up, fire off the X Scissor right before the second Aqua Tail, X Scissor connects, and Quagsire gets KO'd. Opponent now sends in Togekiss. They've already seen X Scissor as the nuke move. They know they wall the Scizor, but guess what? The Iron Head surprise, picking up the one-hit knockout. In the back is Shadow Ampharos, and Ampharos fails to farm down as Shadow Scizor is able to make a last-second X Scissor. That's gonna pressure a shield. Shadow Scizor almost knocking out 2.5 Pokemon just by itself, and in comes Clodsire. Ampharos goes for the Trailblaze. Clodsire gonna have a very comfortable time closing out the game. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Picking up a very bad lead in the next match, Shadow Scizor into Shadow Qwilfish. Shadow Qwilfish has such an insane attack stat that even just an Aqua Tail would require Scizor to put up the shield. The lack of Night Slash again is going to be a big problem for Scizor in this matchup, as Scizor CMP ties X Scissor to the Aqua Tail, but that means that Qwilfish is already at charge attack number 2, and just like that, all Protect Shields for the entire match go down. Shadow Scizor is going to look to overfarm, firing off the X Scissor right before Aqua Tail number 3, but if the opponent wants to double shield, they will be able to win switch. But they don't. They let it go. They bring in Pangoro. They pivot out and send in Toucannon. But this Toucannon is now switch locked. They revealed the entire line. They accidentally clicked Pangoro before they sent in Toucannon. And now with all that information revealed, in comes Clodsire. Clodsire is about to get absolutely shredded by Beak Blast. And unfortunately, with Mudshot on the Clodsire, there's absolutely no fast foot pressure into the Glassy Toucannon. Debuffed Water Pulse really not going to do much. Clodsire makes Water Pulse number 2, but unfortunately will lose charge attack priority. Toucannon takes the knockout with Drill Peck, and now it's all going to be up to the Altaria to try and take home the win. Peck's adding up. Oh my goodness, what a catch. Able to save the Altaria, catch the Beak Blast onto the Shadow Scizor, and that's going to be game over. Back in comes Pangoro. Altaria makes the Moonblast, and this is double super effective. Good night. Down goes Pangoro. Down goes Toucannon as well. And that's a good game. We move to game number 3. Shadow Scizor once again greeted by Shadow Qwilfish. The Shadow Qwilfish didn't end up being as big of a problem last game, simply because the opponent just decided not to double shield it. If this opponent double shields the Qwilfish, then this could get very bad very, very quickly. So far, the game playing out very similarly to last game, where the opponent fires off Aqua Tail, Scizor puts up the shield, and Scizor is able to get the shield back. Opponent does overfarm, but not enough, whereas Scizor could potentially force the final shield. Aqua Tail is shielded, opponent safe switches into Diggersby, and Diggersby is about to be completely walled as in comes Altaria. Unfortunately, Altaria doesn't really have a lot of pressure in this matchup, but the Diggersby, I was going to say should be walled, but this is a Hyper Beam Diggersby, and Diggersby absolutely shreds Altaria's health bar. The Diggersby throws another charge attack, but this can only be a Fire Punch. Fire Punch, not really a problem. Altaria is very bulky. It's able to shake off that damage and fire off Dragon Pulse. Dragon Pulse connects. There's the pivot into the Qwilfish. Qwilfish cannot afford to shield here because if they do, they're getting combo played by the Scizor. They shield, and that's going to cost them. In comes Scizor, launching the X Scissor, and this is going to be knocking out the Qwilfish. Opponent is going to be switch locked, so they are going to have to wait down their full timer just to try and get the timer back. They bring in the Diggersby. Diggersby unable to make the Fire Punch. Very nice overfarm from Boom. This X Scissor is going to take the knockout. In the back, it's going to be a Fortress, and this game is over. Shadow Scizor launching X Scissor. It is resisted, but Shadow Scizor has an insane attack stat. Scizor unable to make it to a second charge attack, but now in comes Clodsire. Clodsire will be able to absorb Sand Tomb after Sand Tomb after Sand Tomb. The Altaria is still lurking as well in case the debuff needs to be reset. Clodsire looking to farm up to the back-to-back Water Pulses. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Shadow Scizor finally picks up a good lead in the next match as it leads into Guzzlord. Guzzlord will have a pacing advantage, but my goodness, look at the Fury Cutters. Opponent save switches into Volt Switch Fortress, quickly answered with the Clodsire, and Clodsire is going to do a very nice job of shutting down the Fortress. Even though Fortress has super effective Sand Tomb, this isn't like the Bug Bite Fortress where the fast attack pressure will actually add up over time. The Volt Switches are basically always going to be doing no damage, and that is going to put Clodsire in a very advantageous position. Clodsire fires off Water Pulse, shield comes up, opponent's really going to regret that shield, because you really don't want to go down shields considering there's a Shadow Scizor that has a ton of energy. Unfortunately, Water Pulse is just such a bad move, especially when it does not get same type attack bonus, that Water Pulse will not be able to two-shot here. So Clodsire, at the very least, will be able to get the Fortress low, but by Fortress going down shields, they will be able to make a play for alignment. However, that can honestly work out pretty well as long as Altaria is able to get a pretty nice peck down. Altaria has big super effective damage or even double super effective damage for the Guzzlord if that's what they decide to send in. In comes Guzzlord, there's the snipe with Scizor. They're going to have to give up their final shield or they're getting one shot. They do put up the shield, they pivot out, it's going to be a Talonflame. Talonflame gets the farm down, but now Altaria should be able to close out this match. Altaria going to be no shielding, calling that it's not the Brave Bird. Even if it is, it would not take the knockout. Talonflame goes for the fly. And now Altaria can hit back with the Dragon Pulse. The goal is to try and set up a peck farm down, so that way Altaria will be able to make it to a Dragon Pulse against the Guzzlord. Talonflame able to make a last second fly. This will burn the last few seconds of the switch timer, so in comes Guzzlord. Guzzlord desperately needs to make the back-to-back brutal swings, but they just simply do not have the energy required. Shield comes up. Altaria even gonna go for good charge attack timing as it goes for the Moonblast. Moonblast vanquishes the Guzzlord. Back in comes Talonflame, and the opponent once again is going to be resigning the match. Even with all the wrong movesets, Boom still forcing trader after trader to top left. Picking up a very bad lead in the next match, you have to hope the opponent assumes Bullet Punch and pivots out, and that's exactly what happens. Had they stayed in with the Weezing, Weezing could have actually done quite well into Scizor, but they pivot out into Furret. Furret takes devastating damage from that X-Scissor, and now in comes Clodsire. Can Clodsire get a full Mudshot farm down? Mudshot really does not do a lot of damage here, but Clodsire would love to try and exit with as much residual energy as possible. Furret just going to spam out Swift after Swift. The fact that they didn't go for Trailblaze does imply that they could very well be running Brick Break. Unfortunately, a farm down is not possible without Furret making a third Swift, so Clodsire will go for the Water Pulse just to secure the knockout. The fact that Water Pulse has been revealed could cause the opponent to bring back in the Weezing, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Weezing goes for Brutal Swing, but this is a Clodsire. Clodsire is one of the bulkiest Pokemon of the Great League that is never taking the knockout. And now, as they try and farm down, Clodsire is going to get a lot of value here. Clodsire fires up the Water Pulse, gets the shield from the Weezing. Clodsire is going to go for yet another Water Pulse. As the opponent realized there's no Earthquake. Yes, they have. They're not going to put up the shield, but they're going to have to throw energy because you could just never Fairy Wind down a Clodsire. Clodsire is just simply too bulky. Brutal Swing takes the knockout. In comes Altaria. These pecks slowly starting to add up. Altaria's charge attacks are completely walled here, so Altaria has to rely on the fast move pressure from Peck. Weezing reveals they are on Sludge, so now the entire moveset is known. Instant no shield from the Altaria as Sludge comes through. Opponent gonna stay in this matchup, trying to make a last second charge attack, and they barely survive to get there. Another no shield, that's just gonna be a Brutal Swing. In the back, it's gonna be a Gourgeist, and Altaria's energy is gonna be very helpful here. This is where having Sky Attack would be very, very nice, and Altaria does not have it, but a Dragon Pulse will still do a considerable amount of damage onto Gourgeist. Dragon Pulse is going to land. Altaria trying to get as much peck damage as possible. Altaria going to pivot out, send in the Scizor, snipe down with the Fury Cutters. That got a little bit scary with the Gourgeist at the end, but very, very well played endgame. And somehow this team just keeps on winning. It appears I may have spoke too soon, because right after saying that, Shadow Scizor leads into Camerupt. Instant save switch into the Clodsire. Clodsire makes the Water Pulse. Opponent may not know this is a Water Pulse. This can only normally be a Sludge Bomb, but no, they are not fooled. They put up the shield anyway, and that is pretty devastating. Clodsire will shield, respecting the Scorching Sands. Opponent is going to go for it and now send out a Rangaroo. However, I don't know if a Rangaroo is going to like what happens next, because this Clodsire has Mega Horn. Mega Horn rocks the Oranguru. There's the pivot out into the Shadow Scizor. Tell me this is a Trailblaze catch. Did they react in time? Oh, they did react in time. That is a little bit tragic. Scizor just going to let itself go. Scizor unfortunately has no play into a Camerupt team, so the best bet for Scizor is to just fully stack itself, and now Clodsire will get a nice farm down. Opponent sends out Shadow Sableye as their final Pokemon. Sableye gonna take massive damage from this Mega Horn. Mega Horn is gonna connect. Sableye survives, hoping for a farm down that they're not going to get. Clodsire makes the Water Pulse and the Switch Timer is available. So now here's a pivot, and in comes the Peck Altaria. Altaria has to decide, is this Dazzling Gleam? No shield comes through. It's a Drain Punch. Oh, what a bait call. And that should instantly end the game. Even if they now go for foul play, it's just simply too little too late. as the Altaria will get a full farm down. Sableye just can't really do much of anything. If they bring in the Camerupt's about to get destroyed by a Dragon Pulse. I know this is the non-Shadow Camerupt, but it's still a Camerupt. Camerupt's getting knocked out here. Back in comes the Sableye. Oh, I guess they may have switched out there to try and catch instead of letting the Sableye get farmed down. The visuals were a little bit weird there, but the good news is we'll still end in a win. The bad news, of course, is that Shadow Scizor cannot stop bleeding into Incinerate users. This time, not a Camerupt, but instead going to be a Talonflame. In comes the Clodsire, firing off the Water Pulse. Opponent no shields, thinking that it's just going to be a Sludge Bomb, and they end up paying a pretty heavy price. Shadow Talonflame goes for the fly. Clodsire able to hang on. Just to pit it out. Oh no. In comes Shadow Hydreigon. Clodsire going straight for the Mega Horn. Do they respect it? They do not. Shadow Hydreigon gets one shot, and that should be the game. Opponent's going to bring back in the Talonflame just to be answered with Altaria. Altaria will be able to fully peck down. The switch timer is not up. They cannot save the Talonflame. Talonflame gets farmed down. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Bad lead after bad lead. Can Scizor catch a break? It cannot, but maybe they'll switch out assuming Bullet Punch, but they don't. They stay in, and this is just an absolute nightmare scenario for Scizor. Scizor's gonna get outpaced by the Togekiss. Aura Sphere would easily take the knockout. Scizor builds up to the Iron Head, baits with the X-Scissor, but this is a pacing advantage that the opponent is always gonna have in their favor. In comes Altaria, Togekiss farms up, banks a bunch of energy. Oh no, they send in Shadow Tyranitar. Normally Tyranitar walls Altaria, but not today. Moonblast picks up the clean one-hit KO, and back in comes the Togekiss. With that Shadow Tyranitar out of the way, this is suddenly a brand new game. Psyshock lands, Altaria survives. They're going to have to throw all of their energy just to get rid of the Altaria. And Shadow Scizor is suddenly in a significantly better spot. Scizor going to be saved for the backline. It's going to be a Whiscash, and this is where things could get a little bit tricky. Whiscash has some pretty good pacing, but Scizor did have quite a bit of residual energy. Whiscash goes for the Mud Bomb. Scizor going to farm up, trying to make it to the back-to-back X-Scissors. X-Scissor number one, launch at the Whiscash. Whiscash puts up the shield. Shadow Scizor wins charge attack priority as Whiscash makes it to Mud Bomb number two. This X-Scissor will get the Whiscash very low, and the fact that that's a charge attack priority tie is absolutely perfect, because now the opponent has no residual energy. In comes the Clodsire. Clodsire outpaces. Water Pulse will be the end of Whiscash, and with Whiscash removed from the field, they just simply don't have the damage needed. Psyshock is a very easy survive for the Clodsire. Clodsire able to farm up and make it to the Water Pulse, and Water Pulse should be taking the knockout here. Down goes Togekiss, and that's a good game. We move to the next match, leading Shadow Scizor into a Licky Licky. Not a great matchup for the Shadow Scizor. Honestly, this team is pretty soft as a whole into Licky Licky. However, correctly shielding a Shadow Ball can go a very long way here. Scizor puts up the shield. It is the Shadow Ball. There's a safe switch into Fortress, and Scizor is going to farm up a ton of energy before unleashing X-Scissor. X-Scissor, no shielded. There's the pivot out. In comes Clodsire. Clodsire will be a good damage sponge, as Clodsire will be able to survive 2 Shadow Sand Tombs, and the hope is that Clodsire will be able to Mudshot it into Water Pulse range. Clodsire over-farming, firing off Water Pulse. Will the opponent decide to invest in the Fortress? Yes, they will. They want to apply that second Sand Tomb debuff. Even though Clodsire is one of the Great League's bulkiest Pokemon, it is now deep into the red HP. Luckily, Clodsire is able to hang on. This Water Pulse is going to be knocking out the Fortress, but no, they put up the shield just to get sniped by the Shadow Scizor. X-Scissor is resisted, but this is going to take the knockout, and down goes Fortress. In the back, the opponent has Shadow Araquanid, so they're running a double Bug Bite team. Normally, the double Bug Bite team has a Stunfisk in the lead, but thankfully, no Stunfisk this time, and oh my goodness, look at the damage from X-Scissor. This Araquanid now deep into the red HP, waiting down the timer, and in comes Altaria. Altaria going to be a full wall to any charge attack that the Araquanid can learn. They fire off the Bug Buzz and send in Licky Licky. Licky Licky will be able to apply consistent damage over time into the Altaria. Unfortunately, not having Sky Attack is a bit rough for the Altaria, but the Pecks are slowly starting to get the Licky Licky lower and lower. Switch timer will also be up for potential catch. Dragon Pulse lands. There's the pivot into Clodsire. Clodsire able to force out energy, and from here, this should be a pretty easy game for the Altaria. Body Slam takes the knockout. Altaria has to put up the final shield, but in order to win the game, the opponent would have to make a move on the Araquanid. Licky Licky is just getting farmed down. Araquanid gets farmed down as well. In comes Licky Licky. Boom has a Dragon Pulse. He's not even gonna need it. That is a dominant win, despite a very rough team comp. Tough lead in the final match. Shadow Scizor into Togekiss, but the opponent pivots out. This time they're fooled and they do not check the fast move. Scizor launches X-Scissor. That's big damage onto the Fortress, and now in comes Clodsire. Judging by the amount of damage we've seen Water Pulse do before, this should be Water Pulse range, so Clodsire is going to be in a very favorable position. Clodsire over-farming, firing the Water Pulse. Are they willing to invest shields knowing they have a pretty glassy Mon in Togekiss? No, they are not. They let the Fortress get KO'd, and now they're going to be sending in a Shadow Quagsire as their final Pokemon. Clodsire going to be full, setting the Mega Horn. This would be big damage if it lands. Mega Horn connects, and there's a quick pivot into the Peck Altaria. Altaria has to respect the Stone Edge. That would do entirely too much damage. Quagsire is going to full send, and there's the pivot out as they bring in Togekiss. Oh my goodness, the double resisted Dragon Pulse bait, but the opponent has every reason to shield it, and they do. Little did they know, this Altaria does not have Sky Attack. He's trying to bait with Dragon Pulse to get to the Moonblast just that little bit faster. Psyshock lands. A second Psyshock is not going to take the knockout. They waste all their energy, but they get basically no value for it. The Moonblast is still reached. They definitely should not have thrown that second charge attack just yet, because now the Moonblast lands. There's the switch into Scizor. Scizor should be able to neutralize the Quagsire, and they only have like 1 HP remaining on that Togekiss. So Scizor just gets the full Fury Cutter down. Back in comes Togekiss. Togekiss gets Fury Cutter down as well, and that is a good game. Man, this really has to be one of the most impressive Legend runs in the entire history of the Go Battle League. Being able not to just run a team like this for novelty, just to win a few games, but to take this as a Legend team is just an absolutely absurd accomplishment. He mentioned that when he switched to this version of the team, he was around 2750 and was able to climb up to around 3100. That is a 350 point climb with a team that has all wrong charge attacks. Now, should you try and run a team like this if you're looking to make it to Legend? Absolutely not. Even I wouldn't dare run a team like this. That just shows what a different level Boom plays at. For Boom, it's basically just a side quest. He's able to, you know what, I'm just going to hit Legend in my spare time with 0 of the optimal moves on my team, and he was still able to do it. Just an absolutely ludicrous accomplishment, and I'm very grateful to him for sending in the footage, so that way I could show people. Because honestly, I feel like if I just told people what happened, people just wouldn't believe it. That's just how absurd of an accomplishment it is to hit Legend with none of the correct moves on your team. I feel like we've seen some people try something like this before for maybe like a day of battles, not really as like a Legend push, but to consistently win with a team like this, it's just absolutely incredible. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.